Alrighty guys, welcome to this week's episode. Today we're going to be discussing the dreaded bush honeysuckle. This whole area was covered in it. We just began this project a few weeks back, but it's going to take us quite a few years to really get this stuff under control. So today what I want to do is I want to discuss how to identify if you have invasive bush honeysuckle and also how to terminate it. So bush honeysuckle, it's an invasive species brought over from Asia and Europe. And once you have bush honeysuckle on your property, it begins to just spread like wildfire, shading out all of your native plants, trees, and pretty much just wiping out entire areas. What ends up happening is it becomes an entire monoculture of just nothing but bush honeysuckle. And that's what this whole bedding area here has been probably for the last 10-20 years. So we want to start getting this under control. We're starting out on this hillside here. We cleaned out quite a bit of this stuff the other day. We came through here, we cut it down to the stump, and then we sprayed it with our Tordon. First, we're going to discuss how to identify this shrub, and then we'll show you guys how to terminate it. So there's a few different ways you can identify this. I snapped one of the branches off to show you guys. You can already see that this has bud out. It's already got leaves starting on it. And this is early spring. All the rest of our native trees are still dormant. Nothing's leafed out yet. So that's a pretty good indicator. If it's bare in the woods and you see something growing that's got green leaves on it, that's probably bush honeysuckle. Another way to know, you can tell by the bark. So this bark, as you can see, it's kind of a light gray, whitish color. It's really flaky. Most of these are probably only about 3 to 4 inches around. They're pretty small. Bush honeysuckle, even though it's a shrub, it can get to about 20 feet tall if you let it get too out of hand. And we do have some mature ones in here, unfortunately, so we're gonna have to chainsaw those to get those knocked down. Later this spring, when the leaves have developed, you'll be able to actually identify it off its leaf. Right now it's really just more of a bud. It's hard to tell. The leaves are opposite of each other the whole way down the limb. They're about 3 inches long. They're kind of an oval shape. They're green. So guys, you can identify it by the leaves, you can identify it by the bark, and the easiest way to know if you have invasive bush honeysuckle is to cut a limb off, look inside of it, and it has a hollow pith that runs all the way through it. That's the easiest way to indicate if you have this species on your property or not. So that's how you identify it. Now let's go ahead and we'll show you guys how to terminate it. We'll show you a couple different ways to terminate these. Take these gloves off here. So you can use a pair of loppers for these smaller ones like this. We'll go ahead, make sure to put on your PPE stuff because we are going to be using chemicals to terminate this. We're going to be spraying this with Tordon. So you want to put some gloves and glasses on to do this. Alrighty. So guys, we have some smaller ones coming off here. So what we'll do is we're just going to take our loppers, we're going to lop it down here, and then we're going to spray it with our Tordon. It's as simple as that to terminate it. The hard part is that this stuff's everywhere. Getting rid of it, it's easy as far as cutting and spraying. Once you get into the bigger stuff, you will have to chainsaw it. If you're somebody you don't want to use chemical, there is a way around using chemical for the smaller stuff. When the soil's a little bit damp, you can actually just come up to it, reach right on it, and pull it out of the ground. But as far as these go, you're going to have to cut these with loppers, and then you're going to have to spray it with your Tordon. If you guys don't want to put chemical on these, I'd probably recommend not even trying to tackle this. Unfortunately, if you don't terminate these, they're just going to come back. These are extremely invasive, and they require very little sunlight. Even if you're in a hardwoods area where it's extremely canopied, these are going to thrive in there. And then as soon as you get more light in here, they're just going to do that much better. So unfortunately, the only way to get rid of these is cut them, terminate them, and you got to try to get as much of it out of here as you possibly can. In the summertime, these have little red berries on them, and birds like to eat those. That's typically how the seeds get passed all over the place. Obviously, they'll drop them as well, and like we said, once they're in an area, they just flourish. The negative part about this invasive shrub, once this thing begins growing, even at a young age, it's already canopying the forest floor, and it's competing with all of your native stuff. The only thing that's going to thrive are plants or trees that are taller than your bush honeysuckle. So we really need to get this out of here. we'll come through, we'll cut all this down, we'll spray the stumps, and then we'll come back through here and we'll burn all this stuff. We're gonna have to pile it up. So a good recommendation is to start with like a 1 acre area, cut, spray, burn, and as soon as you get to leaf out, you will have to quit using chemical, because then what you're doing is you're risking the chemical being drawn through your native tree species. So we only have probably a couple more weeks of doing this before we're gonna have to quit using chemical. That doesn't mean we can't keep going through the timber and pulling all of the young ones out of the ground. They have very shallow roots, so pretty easy to do on the young ones, but as they get older, you will have to come through, cut, terminate. So we'll go ahead and we'll show you guys how to do this. So just come down to the bottom, cut it just like so. And you'll just take your Tordon, spray right on the stump, and there you go. So now we've treated this one here, and we'll just move to the next one. We'll cut and treat, and we'll continue to do this process all the way down this whole hillside. Alrighty guys, I hope this was beneficial for you guys on how to identify if you have bush honeysuckle, also how to terminate it. We're really looking forward to this project and seeing how it does. I know this hillside here, we got a lot of work still left ahead of us, but just what we opened up already, I can just imagine this is going to be new vegetation. We'll have new grasses, forbs, trees. This will flourish on this whole hillside, and we should have turkeys in here either nesting or at least feeding on all the bugs and plants and stuff growing in here. And I know the whitetail are going to be happy that they can come through here and actually bed in this stuff again. It just got too thick for them, and they just stopped using it altogether. This used to be probably one of the best bedding areas on this farm. Now we're looking forward to them using it again. Thanks for tuning in on this week's episode, guys. We'll be back next Friday.